Wow, what an honor, a privilege. I knew most of those names we just heard. Yesterday I got to meet with a couple of folks, and I completely changed what I was going to say today. This is a songbook from the USS Working I've had with me since the first day I reported on board. This songbook I sang with those fellas in the chow hall, in the mess hall, whatever you want to call it. Songs out of this book. One day I was thumbing through it, and I found a dried lily leaf. The lily represents all those things when we bury one at sea. It represents the sympathy. It represents eternal recognition for what we've done. It recognizes the frailness of life and as we leave them behind. So many times when we lay that wreath at sea, it's got lilies on it. A dried lily is a reminder of those left behind. And I looked at this book. I don't know why I brought it home with me, but I did, and I cherish it dearly. I met with Jane and Richie yesterday for lunch, and we had an opportunity to speak, for 4 hours? At least 3 hours about Scorpion. So I've only been given a couple of minutes to speak with you today. But I've got to tell you that it was a wonderful time with them. I was aboard ship as a torpedoman, and something I shared with Marietta just the other day, her dad saved my life. Wally Bishop, thumb in his pocket, ink rolling out of his shirt, like he often was. I was so anxious to become an officer. I was so anxious to do something different. I was conflicted of what I wanted to do. I even wanted to stay on board. I had orders prepared by Commander Levy to remain on board. But I was conflicted. I spoke with guys off the tender that were lieutenants. They had worked their way through the ranks, and I wanted to be something different. I wanted to make something of myself. Not that I didn't mind being a torpedoman, that was okay, but I wanted something different. And I remember talking to your dad, and he says, "You're a good man, you're a good boy." I was still a boy. He said, "Follow your dreams, do what you want." And I did, and I left. So when that ship went down, my orders were on board, but I wasn't. I've had horrible dreams about the events that took place. And I began my career looking at that ship when it sank, with all the lives that were gone. And from 1991 till 2006, I was serving most of that time in the Middle East, and then seeing once again friends, soldiers, Marines dying again. So I began with life taken away, and I ended my career with life gone. So this is a Memorial Day that's very special to me in recognizing so many faces and names. Those guys aboard that ship, I was a barber. When I came aboard, the XO found out I was a barber. I went to barber school while I was in high school. And so the XO, Levy and I, we went out and we got a barber chair, brought it aboard ship. So I've got to tell you that most of those guys that we heard their names called a few minutes ago, I not only knew them, my hands, as I heard their names, was on their heads. And I cut those heads. I talked to them about family, how they cheated playing cribbage, how the stuff that we did. A submarine going out during the Cold War, we went to sea in those cold Atlantic waters. We would have all sorts of stuff growing on against that hull. Sea worms, bacteria, slime. It was awful. And we'd get back, and your dad, he had us put a 12-degree list on that boat. We needed a paint job. Ronnie Byers Emmy Henry and Cowan were on that little camel raking that horrible stuff off the hull of that submarine. It stunk like crazy. Then the seagulls came. Yeah. And we have our hats turned down. Those seagulls are bombing us. And we were so filthy, we had to have chow brought up to us, and we eating fried chicken sitting on a cleat. But let me tell you, we painted that submarine. We spent days scrubbing and painting. And let me tell you, when we got up there to that sail, and the sail didn't have 589 on it when we came home, but it had 589 on it when we finished that paint job. What we did back then during the Cold War was dangerous. It really was. And we talked about it, but not too much. We didn't want to scare ourselves to death, but there was stuff going on. And then besides that, we couldn't say a word about what we did. Our wives or our sweethearts, they had no idea what we did. What we did was important. We knew it was, scary at times, and afraid, but we did what we did. I remember probably Constantino came to mind. I was standing watching the torpedo room and I saw Constantino, our steward. And I went in there and I said, "What you got?" He said, "I got my checkbook." "Yeah, got my checkbook. I've got all these years in the Navy and I've been saving lots of money. One day when I get out of Navy, I'm gonna buy a house cash. I'm gonna get married. Yes, I am." He never saw that house. I knew that would happen. I'm sorry. It's so close, it's too raw. I suffer the same as you every day. Jolene is my bride now. My wife Linda died, but Jolene knows even at home, sometimes I just howl with tears. It never goes away. The hurt's always there. Wake up. I remember waking those guys up and watch. Some of them are ornery as goats. You know, and the chief would say, "Just yank them out of the bunk if they don't get up and relieve you." You know, I think Emmy Henry was one of the worst. And McLean, we talked about McLean. He was pretty bad about getting up. So my point is, these guys were my brothers. We were very close. And for those wives and brothers and sisters and nephews and cousins of those that went down, you need to know they were brave. I remember going back to the machinery spaces and speaking to the nukes. I remember Beasley, even though he's not there on the boat, Beasley would get seasick before we even stationed the maneuvering watch. I never could understand that. Now station the maneuvering watch and he's already thinking about throwing up. And but it was during the Cold War. Their service was secret, their service was critical, and what we did was important. And they made life better for America, what they did. They're heroes. They always will be heroes to me. I thought about that lily, the lily of the valley. That's what changed me. I was angry. We talked about being angry. I was so angry with God. And I had a pastor tell me, I had to go through counseling. He says, "Who do you think you are? Being angry with God. You limit his ability. You be angry at him." Think of Job. Job was ripped at God for what he did. Ripped away every belonging he had, but he restored him. It was faith that brought me around. It was faith that made me stronger. And thank goodness God saved me in a way. And so I just want to thank all of you that are here today to remember Scorpion. I wish I'd have been able to be with you in the earlier days, but I was serving the country. I was doing what I was supposed to do. It wasn't until some years later, I was in Norfolk, when I saw the memorial for the first time. I was afraid to go over there, because I knew the names I would see. I knew them well. But I did. I stood there for a while. And I had one of the COs of one of the subs come out, and he said, "Did you know any of those fellas?" I said, "I knew a lot of them. read my hand down the names. He said, I need you to have dinner with me tonight on board. So we had a great time talking about my years on Scorpion. Scorpion was a serious vessel. It was packed to the teeth with speed, and man, we could really do it. We could get that boat going so fast it'd shoot up a rooster tail behind it, you know. So, and it was the memory of the Scorpion every day that I did everything I could to advance myself, advance my career. And I stand before you today in great humbled heart, and just thank you again for being here today. God bless you.